are so easily entertained.
It says here, insecurity helps first. That's a psychological thing.
You guys are crazy.
All right. I guess there's no way out of this. We have to do it. We have to do it. Ready? Everybody on the tips of your toes. Get that blood going. Arms in the air. Repeat after me. Born a champion.
Born a champion.
Born a champion.
Born a champion.
Woohoo! All right, give yourself a round of applause. Good job. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Is it good? A little too loud or no? Is it too loud? Volume good? You're good? Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for being here tonight. We are going to learn about some things. What are you here to learn about? Detox. Thank you for reminding me. I've got some brain fog going on here because I'm detoxing. No. So I'm just so thrilled that all of you guys are here for me to share this with you. And it's just like being in my living room with my family. So I love you and I appreciate you. And we're going to get into the real crux of what we can do to not just improve your life and your health, but really your quality of life. How many of you guys are here because you want to get healthier? Yeah? Okay. How many of you have given thought to what your health is going to look like 5 or 10 years from now? Anybody? Nope? We haven't thought about that. Good. Well, you're in the right place because I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about that for you because very often I think about it for me. And especially when I go and visit my mother-in-law who's in memory care and I see the effects of what damage can be done to the brain. And when it comes to the fastest growing disease these days, what do you think that is? It's brain disease. Yeah, dementia, Alzheimer's. So you're sitting here right now in a workshop for toxicity and detox. And I got to tell you, there's a huge connection here. And for me, this is the most important reason. And not only do I want to do everything I can to prevent that for me and my family, I want to try to help you guys prevent that for yours as well. Fair enough? So everything that we're going to talk about is going to be geared toward that, maximizing your brain health, your overall health, and I'm going to share that with you. And then next month we have our Heart Smart workshop, Heart Health. And so I don't have to tell you how important that is. The number one disease killer. So make sure you're here. I know that there's many of you here that you're always asking me questions about your cholesterol. What can I do to get my LDL cholesterol back down? You're scared out of your wits. And you know, some of you guys have been here to this workshop before. But it takes repetition, right? Repetition is the mother of all skill. Repetition is the mother of all skill. So we're going to give you lots of confidence when you guys come back to the workshop. All right, so what do you see up there? What does that look like to you? Your health is your wealth. Everybody say that together. Your health is your wealth. All right. What would you have more of? More money or more health? Yeah. If you had $1 billion or several $1 billion and you got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, what good is that? And we've seen that before, we would never trade places with that person in a million years. But by the time we lose our health, it's too late. So I want to make sure that we understand we're not preaching to the choir, because I know there are things that I can be doing better. And how many of you would agree that there are things that you could be doing better, right? So if you know your health is your wealth, then you want to make sure that you are a good steward with that. And we know the most important thing that comes down the pike very quickly, and then it strikes when it's too late. So the new normal, and what I want to, pretty much unpack here for you is this is what the world we live in right now. And it's just so common that we call it normal. 1 out of 2 kids, autistic. we're almost there. If we continue on the spectrum that we're on right now with how many kids are being diagnosed, by 2032 it'll be 1 out of 2 kids. Common but not normal. 1 out of 3 kids born today are going to become diabetic. And today we have just as many, if not more, kids that are diabetic than adults. Common but not normal. 85% of adults have at least one chronic health issue. 60% of adults have at least 2. And I'll go as far as saying 85% of adults are taking at least 1 prescription medication, and 60% are on at least 2. And these are adults that are probably in their 40s. I remember I was at my high school reunion a few years ago, and it was our 30th. And I was in my late 40s, and most of my high school friends were on at least 1 prescription drug. Many of them were on 2 for diabetes, blood pressure. So again, this is what we call the new normal. We get older, we take more medications, we have more health problems, and it's just a norm. Every 3 minutes, 2 people in the United States dies from cancer. Now, you go outside the United States, do those statistics apply? Nope, only in the United States. And as I said before, this is just part of it. You know, the other part of it is what's going on in our brain as well. And I want to build on this as we go forward. So, where is the big concern? Where does this come into play, and what is really going to be jeopardizing our health and really accelerating the disease process inside? Comes from the most commonly overlooked source, and we're talking about toxins. So the major one that we have to look at today is mercury. The second one we're going to look at is lead, and then the third one we're going to look at are pesticides. Now, yes, we have mold and we have other biotoxins that are realities, and they do affect us, but the ones that are the most commonly overlooked culprits for ill health are these 3 right here. So we're going to go into that. Toxicity, actually, you don't even have to be exposed to environmental toxins to be toxic. Most of the toxins you and I are already born with. Did you know that? Second that you come out of the womb, before you even take your first breath of oxygen, you're born toxic. Now, how could that even be possible? That's absolutely insane, to stop and think about that for a minute. But the Environmental Working Group, they studied the umbilical cords of all the newborns in the study that were found. An average of 200 toxins were found in each baby, and 180 of those toxins were found to be causing cancer. So the reason why toxins can be passed on from the mother to the baby is because that umbilical cord is what? That's the lifeline. That's getting everything. It's getting all the blood supply, but also genetically, what's happening in the mom gets passed on to the kids. Now, yes, we share a lot of the same DNA that our parents do, but when there are toxins involved, the toxicity tends to turn on those bad genes that otherwise would remain muted and wouldn't cause a problem. And we're going to get back to that, but does that make sense so far? Okay, so we have to understand the reality of this. As soon as we're born into this world, there is some level of toxicity that's going on that's going to determine which way our health goes as we get older. So the first thing that we have to consider is something called mercury. What is it? Mercury. Now, we're not talking about a remote distant planet. We're talking about something called thimerosal, which we see in childhood vaccines, flu shots. We're talking about mercury that they put in contact lens solution in the 80s and 90s that many of you in the room were using. My mother was using it. That's why my mercury levels were sky high when I was born. And they continued to be high. And I had all types of problems. And I had weight problems growing up as a child. Never knew why until I had my blood tested 15 years ago. Sky high. Did I have all my childhood shots? You betcha. And then some. Did I have mercury fillings, amalgam fillings, which are 50% metallic mercury? Yeah. How many of you in the room were exposed to these things? Everybody, yeah. So we know it goes in. But the question is, How does it come out? And your body's smart. Your body has an amazing intelligence in it. You know that, right? You're breathing right now. Your lungs are taking in oxygen. You're not even thinking about this. Your heart is beating. Your body's amazingly intelligent. But when it comes to toxins, there are no receptor sites on the cells. Your body doesn't know what to do with toxins. And as it accumulates, as time goes on, it makes serious, serious problems in the form of what we deal today with and what we're taking medication for.
Is mercury vapor coming off a 25-year-old silver amalgam filling in an extracted tooth. The background is a phosphorescent screen. The mercury vapor absorbs the fluorescent light, and you can see it as a shadow on the screen. This is mercury coming off a filling that was dipped in water that's the same temperature as the human body. This is a filling that was rubbed with a pencil eraser for just a few seconds.
See the smoke coming off that?
Like going to the hygienist and having her clean your teeth. These are not small amounts of mercury. If you can see it, it's more than 1,000 times higher than the Environmental Protection Agency will allow for the air that we breathe. What about the last time you went to the dentist and they drilled on your tooth? Here is the mercury vapor every time you raise the temperature to 110 degrees with hot coffee or warm water, or even chewed on it. Mercury comes off fillings every time you stimulate them, and that stimulation causes the mercury to continue to leak out of the fillings for an hour and a half at a minimum.
Where does the mercury go? It goes to your brain. Yeah, so I had my mercury fillings taken out, and unfortunately I didn't know that there was a safety protocol. You have to go to a dentist that has training in the safety removal process. And I didn't know about this. My dentist just said, hey, it's a good idea to take them out. And he just tore them out of my mouth. And oh boy, I remember that. As time went on, my energy got worse and worse. My health got worse and worse. I had no idea until I started studying this stuff. And I'm gonna circle back to how you address this, how you even know that that's going on. But if you have amalgam fillings right now, you need to strongly consider dealing with that, because it just doesn't go away. But ask me when if you have questions or you want to get something done with that, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. But yeah, this all goes to the brain and it stays there. It doesn't come out. Most countries have already banned mercury. The United States, really the only country left that still uses it in silver fillings, and they'll stand behind that, because if they ever do say that, okay, we're not using mercury anymore, what does that make them look like? Not good. It gives them a black eye and says, like all these years that we used it, we were wrong, and look at all the health problems. So they're going to defend it till the death, but there's a reason why all the other countries have banned it and the United States hasn't. So this is my blood test I was telling you guys about. I had this done about 15 years ago. I suspected something was wrong, and at the time I had a practitioner working here in the office who suggested that I do this test, something called DMSA, and I'll never recommend that anybody does this, because those were the worst 2 weeks of my life when it basically took all the toxins that were in my brain and my deep tissues and dumped it into my body. You know what kind of reaction I had? It felt like 10 doses of COVID at the same time. If you can imagine the fatigue that I was walking around with, it felt like I had bricks on my shoes. It didn't matter if I had 10 cups of coffee. What I didn't know back then that I know now is DMSA is not safe. And there are other ways to address this, but at the same time, I at least got confirmation. You see those two black lines right there where the red arrow is? It shows you that my lead and my mercury levels were 3 times the normal that they should have been. So I found this out a long time ago, and ever since then I've been looking for ways to address it. And that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight, the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. There are ways that we can detox. How many of you guys you ever done a juice cleanse or a hallelujah diet, or we have this cleanse and citric, we have all these different types of chlorella and all these different types of things that we may have learned about, whether it's from friends or the internet. And while they work at some level, they don't get to the deeper sources and cross the blood-brain barrier. And this is really where the most important part of this comes into play, and how you get your health back. Whether it's a thyroid issue, whether it's a blood sugar issue, whether it's a brain disease issue. This is where you have to get to the deeper sources where most people never get the proper strategy and solution. Other dental procedures also cause health problems. Did you notice? Root canals. Bacteria get trapped in these little microtubules, and that bacteria stays there, and it never leaves, and it wreaks havoc. And I've had patients where their doctors have actually discovered this. When they have the root canal taken out, they see these massive infections in there, and sometimes it causes cancer. And we've seen the correlation with that, especially in the meridians where, in your mouth, some of them correlate with your liver and other organs, which tend to produce more problems and more disease. Gold crowns with amalgam. Gold and amalgam. You're talking about gold and silver, two different metals. And then you have the saliva in your mouth, which is almost like, you're talking about a battery now, right? That's what it is. You're creating a cross-current charge. Bridges with amalgam, same thing. Galvanism. It's basically like a battery in your mouth. Implants and other surgical metals. So you guys get the point that if you're not aware of these things and you're looking for answers as to why, I may have this problem or may have that problem, if you have any of this stuff done, then you may want to start getting some more information on that if you're going to solve this problem. That's going to be part of the recipe. How about a flu shot? You ever had a flu shot? And if you have had a flu shot, how many have you had? Dr. Hugh Fudenberg, world's leading immunogeneticist, almost 850 peer-reviewed papers that he's had published. So this guy knows a little bit something about your immune system and vaccines and flu shots. And because of the buildup of the aluminum and the mercury, he found that if you've had 5 or more consecutive flu shots, your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease is what? 10 times greater than if you had 1, 2, or no vaccinations. So I used to tell my patients all the time, never, ever, 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 ever get a flu shot. But I don't think I need to tell you guys that, do I? No. So you guys are smart. We already kind of know that you can't hop from Peter to Paul, can you? No. But what happens? We go to our doctors, and Paulette, you ask your doctor some questions, and then they give you answers, and then you're like, I don't like the way that sounds. But you don't know what else to do. You don't know what else to ask, right? And so sometimes we wind up making decisions that we're not really comfortable with, and we're a little anxious about. And what does the Bible tell us about that? Are we supposed to make decisions when there's anxiety? Or do we make decisions when there's peace? All right, yeah. So you know where your peace comes from. You know who your peace comes from. And it ain't me. Part of your peace comes from the knowledge that we discuss here, right? You keep coming back to the workshops every month, and what happens? You learn and you grow and you get these knowledge. And then what happens, Paulette? You're able to ask intelligent questions. And then you can make good decisions that you're comfortable with. Right, Sandra? We've all done this before. You guys are highly intelligent. Many of you, you've been to 50, 100 workshops over the last 20 years. I've been doing these workshops for now 25 years. Some of you guys have been with me from the beginning. Deborah's been there. Deborah was at the first one in 1999. So that's why the point I'm making is just, you're not going to get all this in one shot in one night. Just keep coming back to the workshops. You'll keep learning, and when it comes to making the right decisions, whether it's this pandemic or the next pandemic or whatever it is, at least you'll have a rock to stand on, and you won't be swept with every breeze that comes blowing through. Dementia and Alzheimer's, we talked about this. Fastest growing disease in the United States, 1 out of 9 over the age of 65, 1 out of 2 over the age of 85. And I can honestly tell you that if you're not doing something to prevent it, and you're not getting super proactive about this, by the time you start having short-term memory loss or any of these, symptoms that we're going to discuss tonight, it's already too late. It usually starts about 10 years before they diagnose it. It starts 10 years before they diagnose it. So when's the best time to start getting proactive with your brain health?
Right now.
Right now, or maybe 10 years ago, depending on where you're at right now. So it can never be too late. It's important that you understand that the metals that we've talked about up to this point, which two metals have we talked about? Mercury, and we're about to go into lead. They both do the same thing. They cause inflammation of the brain tissue. And that's part of the reason why we start seeing the short-term memory loss and the change in the vasculature and the blood supply. It's a cascading effect. But at any rate, it not only causes the Alzheimer's dementia, but the other thing that it kills in your gut is the neurotransmitters, which is responsible. You know, your gut is what they call the second brain. Did you know that? It's your second brain. So it's responsible for making the neurotransmitters. What are the neurotransmitters? Serotonin, right? Dopamine. What do they do? When they're working properly, do you feel depressed or do you feel happy? You feel happy, right? Now, how is that possible if you don't have the right gut health? If the intestinal flora is being destroyed because of toxicity, or because of too much sugar, or because of bad fats, bad nutrition, if you're exposed to chemicals, how is it possible for you to have consistent energy and a feeling of well-being on a day-to-day basis? It's not. And where does that come from? I mean, are we supposed to run for an antidepressant? Well, maybe if you don't have another answer. But if we're looking at the causative factors that we're talking about right now, well, maybe it has something to do with this. Just maybe. So we look at the gut, and we know that our neurotransmitters come from there. We need to make sure that we're looking at gut health. Very, very important. So we're going into lead right now. Where is lead found? Where was the lead found? Paint. Yeah, we had paint. We used to have houses that were painted in lead, and the water, right? The gasoline. So but that was years ago, a lot of that, right? But what does that have to do with now? Remember, if your mother had it, if your mother was exposed to those toxins, when you were in utero, that was being passed down to you. And the way it affected you is in two ways. Number one is when you are pregnant or you're going through any hormonal changes, whether it's pregnancy, puberty, any kind of changes, hormonal changes, lead gets released from your bones. And so that's one of the primary times that happens when a person's pregnant. They're going to release the lead, and that goes into the umbilical cord and gets passed on to the baby. And then the other thing that happens is it turns on those bad genes. Toxins turn on the bad genes. So we all have the DNA, and I'm going to give you an example right down here. They did this study at MIT. You see those two rats down there? Okay, so one is dark gray. The other one is a lighter cream color, or a white color, let's say. Okay, so what's the difference between those two rats? Well, they both have the same gene. It's called the agouti gene. Everybody say agouti. Agouti. Okay, so you're still awake. That's good. You still have a pulse. What is the agouti gene? The agouti gene in a rat will cause them to gain weight, become obese, become diabetic, and cause them to have that white hair. All right? So the question is, why does that one on the left not have it and the one on the right does? Because they edited the genes. They spliced the genes. And what they did was they gave the one on the left the methylated gene, which gave it the ability to detoxify. And the one on the right, they edited out the gene that enabled it to detoxify. Now, both of them were fed the same food, given the same amount of toxins in the food. They were able to exercise. They had the same environment. But because the one agouti rat did not have the gene to methylate, to detoxify, it had the bad gene turned on. What does that mean? It expressed the bad gene to become diabetic, to become obese, to have the white hair. And it all was because of the toxins. What triggered the genes? The what? The toxins. They had the same genes. So my point is this, that when a baby's in utero, or you're out of utero, now, if there are toxins in the cells, does it affect the DNA? Yes or yes? Yeah. So that's an important point that you understand. Lead gets stored in your bones, and then it comes out at different times during your life. So when the lead gets released, it can cause heart disease, high blood pressure, strokes, weight gain. We know this. This has been published in the Journal of Environmental Health. Hypertension. Medical journals have already reported on this and confirmed this is a real thing. It's been published in terms of studies being a causative factor for drug-resistant hypertension. Lead being a cause for that, yeah. Aging, menopause, pregnancy, breastfeeding, stress, thyroid conditions, all can release lead from the bones. Did you know that? That's interesting, isn't it? Turn to your neighbor and say, wow! Wow! Okay. Lead in cosmetics? Can you get lead in cosmetics secured? Yeah. Yeah. Where does it come from? The 20 out of the 33 lipsticks that they did in this study had huge high contents of lead. Oh, well, I'm just putting it on my lips. Well, your skin is a permeable membrane. Whatever you're putting on your skin it's going inside. So, and then, like you said, Bruce, in our water systems. And, Plantation has the best water in the world. We're not safe with any water system, guys. And, it doesn't take a whole lot of investigation to see that there's lead in our water sources. The greatest civilization of ancient times, Rome, what did they line the aqueducts with? All the water systems were lined with what? With lead sheets. And there were studies that were done and theories, and I read some things about the link between that and the fall of Rome. Yeah. So I can't prove it's true or not, but they did publish a paper on how important this is and how it affects the brain. How lead affects the brain. So we're getting somewhere now, right? And then the last thing we said that affects the brain is glyphosate. What is glyphosate? Anybody ever use Roundup? You're not supposed to touch it. You're supposed to wear gloves. You don't want to be exposed to it. The problem is that, unless you're buying GMO, it's on all our crops. And you know what? Even if you're buying all GMO, you know what GMO means, right? Genetically modified. Why is it they genetically modify it so it can withstand as much glyphosate as possible without dying, the crop actually dying. So genetically modified means, if you're not buying, non-GMO, you're getting all that glyphosate in those crops. Now, what are the two crops? 70% of all the glyphosate that's dropped is where? Goes to two places. Which two places? Corn and soy. Very good. Corn and soy. And what do they use corn and soy for? Pretty much everything. Do I have corn chips when I go to La Bamba? Yeah, so you'll find it in there. But regardless of what you're looking at, on your labels, on your food labels, maybe you're doing a good job making sure that you're avoiding this stuff. But guess what? What do they feed the cows with? What do they feed the pigs with? What do they feed the chickens with? What do they feed the fish with now? So we're on that food chain, and we're getting it whether we like it or not. It's going in, and the majority of the glyphosate that is being used is on those things. So it's getting in. The question is it getting in faster than we're able to get it out? That's really the question. And so what glyphosate does, now get this, here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Are you ready? What glyphosate does is it opens the blood-brain barrier, and it exposes the brain tissue significantly more and damages it far more than even lead and mercury. So if you look at the bottom right there, you'll see a study that came out of one of the universities by Nancy Swanson. And it shows you that the yellow blocks there are the number of deaths from senile dementia, how it affects the brain. And that red line right there correlates with the amount of glyphosate that was increased over the years from 1989 to 2009. Can everybody see that? 100% correlation with the amount of glyphosate that they've increased and deaths from senile dementia. And of course, we know that leads to what? Alzheimer's. Totally affects the brain. Now, it's not just, adults. It starts with the kids. When we have them on soy-based infant formula, what are we pumping into them? Glyphosate, yeah. And then, all the fast food everything that you see there, from French fries to the Happy Meal, the hamburgers, the soft drinks, high fructose corn syrup, all of that is loaded with the glyphosate. All of those things. And this is the American way. This is what we call the standard American diet. So can you see how it's causing, like what we started with, what we said, 1 out of every 3 kids becomes diabetic, right? 1 out of every 2 kids becoming autistic. Where is it starting? It starts in the womb, and then we keep pumping it from that day forward. So this is scary because, what happens 20 years, 30 years from now, when we're a little bit older, who's going to be taking care of us? All these kids that were diseased, that are managing their diseases, trying to manage us? That's a scary thought. That is a scary thought. No, we got to get this corrected now. So in your handout, I'm not going to go through it, but the dirty dozen, we call this, these are the ones where they're the most heavily sprayed with pesticides. And those are the ones that, organic food, obviously the organic stuff costs more, right? And you never want to cheat on, you never want to skimp on your health, because it's always cheaper to buy organic and grass-fed than it is to treat the diseases that result from the other stuff. But if you look at the dirty dozen, you'll see that these are the ones that are most heavily sprayed with pesticide that will affect your health. So those are the ones that you want to buy organic. The Clean 15, those are the ones with, those are safe if you don't buy the organic. I try to buy organic as much as I possibly can. But that's in your handout. It's for you to review later. Put it on your refrigerator. Take it to the grocery store with you. Some other chemicals that you want to be concerned with. Bisphenols, including BPA. What do we see those in? So, plastic bottles. The receipts that you get from the restaurant after you put your tip on there and you total it and you sign your name and you put it in your bag. It's all coming off on your hands. Most of the cans, any canned foods that we have, and you can see the health challenges that comes with it. Reproductive issues. It affects your brain health. Flame retardants. What do they use that for? In your furniture, in your carpet, in your mattresses. How about your brand new cell phones? Your iPhone, your Samsungs, loaded with that stuff. You open it up, you're touching it, it's going all over you. When you make a bag of popcorn, on the inside, that's what it is, flame retardants. So, highly toxic, it's going in. And then we have PFAs. Also, you guys, everybody knows you don't use Teflon, right? But then, when you get a pizza or you get these, you get your foods with the wrappers, it's on that also. So these are other cancers, other cancer-causing toxins. Phthalates. Have you ever heard of phthalates? Used to make plastics stronger, more durable, that they last longer. Some of these are called forever chemicals because they don't break down in your body. They just wreak havoc, horrendous health problems that develop from these, and really the accumulation of them. So this is really what happens. Studies show the average person is exposed to more than 700,000 toxic chemicals every day. 700,000 toxic chemicals every day. So we live in a toxic soup. You may have heard me say this before. The question is not, are you toxic? Right? The question is, how toxic are you? And so it's a reality. It's the world that we live in today. And so addressing this comes in a particular strategic fashion. Our cells are almost like buckets. The toxins, they affect us, more and more toxins. And before you know it, the bucket gets filled up, and it starts what? Overflowing. And when it starts overflowing, that's when we start noticing a lot of the health problems. While you're taking on more and more toxic, that toxic burden, as it grows in your body, you may not necessarily know it right away. But as time goes on, once these cells become affected and they start spilling over, it spills over into high blood pressure, digestive issues, can cause weight loss resistance. I'm going to show you this in just a minute. It can cause dizziness, inability to handle stress, brain fog, fatigue, headaches, hormone dysregulation, trouble sleeping, depression, which we talked about because of the serotonin and the dopamine, right? So that's how it works. And so there are ways that you can tell your toxicity level, and there are two ways. One of these is the meta-oxy. So this is basically a urine test, and we have these kits. We do this here in the office, and there's a little reagent that once we get a urine sample, we put a little bit of the liquid in there, and it mixes, and it'll come out mixing with your urine. It'll turn a certain shade, and depending on the shade and how dark it is, it tells us the level of inflammation, cellular inflammation, because the cells cause the inflammation at a cellular. The toxins cause the inflammation at a cellular level. So this is the most accurate way to determine cellular inflammation and the level of toxicity. Much more so, probably 50 times more accurate than a blood test. So this is what we use as part of that. The other thing that we use is something called a visual contrast sensitivity test. Now, when you're toxic, it affects the optic nerve, right, Chris? Which nerve? Optic nerve. If you hear me calling names, it just means eyes are going. So the way this works is you put your chin on it, and you look, and you're not reading letters. What you're reading is lines. Now, from that far away, you can't see it. But if you're up close, you can see these lines go in all different directions. But if you're toxic, you lose the ability to discern fine lines, visual contrast. And so this is a special test that was developed to determine not only the level of toxicity, but what type of toxicity, whether heavy metals, biotoxins, and things like that. So this is where things get real specific. Now also in your handout, there was a questionnaire. And now you don't have to fill that out now, that's for you if you want to do it later. But through the questionnaire, through the visual contrast sensitivity and the meta-oxy test, we can determine a person's level of toxicity, whether you're symptomatic or not. And from there, then you can see, how important it is to get moving with this stuff, again, before it's too late. So I just wanted to cover that because, you're wondering, like, well, if this is true, and it is, then how do I address it? At what point do I address it? Well, the testing is one way to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get practical for a moment here. What else do we need to do to make sure that our body is detoxing? Because, your body does know how to detox, right? What does it need to detox? Well, it needs a healthy nervous system, and we know the power's in the panel. Your spine is like a circuit breaker, right, Patrick? Spine is like a circuit breaker. You need all the electrical wires coming off of there, leaving without any interference. Now, if a circuit flips, if the breaker pops, then no power's getting out. And that would kind of be the equivalent of that up on the left there. That's called what? Subluxation. That's a bone out of alignment putting pressure on the nerve. And if the nerve has pressure on it, it's like standing on a garden hose. That nerve supply is not getting out. That means the connection from the brain to where that nerve is going is not getting there the way it's supposed to. Now, if that level of interference is occurring at the top part of the neck here, that can interfere with the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. And that just has a trickle-down effect for all your other detox organs. There's a nerve supply going to your thyroid, right? If the thyroid isn't getting proper nerve supply, can you expect the thyroid to do its job to deal with toxins? Of course not. And the lungs, your lungs actually detox. Did you know that? Your lungs are actually part of your detoxification system. Yeah. So you need proper nerve supply for your lungs, and you need proper nerve supply for your liver, and you need proper nerve supply for your kidneys. These are all your detox organs, right or right?
Right.
Yeah. What else? Your intestines. This is where all the toxins go when they get released from your cells. So if you're not getting proper nerve supply to these organs because of nerve interference, because vertebrae are out of alignment in your spine, you may or may not know that. Now, for you who are my patients here, you know that. That's why you get checked regularly, so that you maintain proper nerve supply to prevent problems like this, right?
Right.
But for people who are not under chiropractic care, who don't know, who don't get checked, on a regular basis, like you go to a dentist for good dental hygiene, who should be seeing a chiropractor regularly for good spinal hygiene? Everybody, yeah. So for you guys, we always, tell you, you're always welcome to refer your family or your friends, and we always give you an opportunity to do that. For any guests that are here tonight, we give you the opportunity to have that done. A thermal scan would be the first step to detect any nerve interference. That's thermography, that's NASA space technology. You can see that scan on the left with all the colors. That's a problem. That would be the first indication that there's a problem there. Whether you have back pain or not, it can pick that up long before you start dealing with problems. And if we see that, then sometimes x-rays are warranted. Now, normally for the exam, for the x-rays, the reported findings, it's about $400 or so. If you're a guest here tonight, and this makes sense to you, and you haven't had your spine checked in a while, and somebody told you to come here just to check this out, this is a friends and family coupon. This for what is it? $97. You got a full exam, thermal scan, x-rays, full set of x-rays if you need them, and the reported findings. Over $400 worth of service for only $97. Ask for one of these on the way out, and we'll make sure that we make it easy for you to get an appointment. And we can get everything checked. Because you can eat good and exercise till the cows come home, and detox till the cows come home. But if your nerve system is short-circuiting, there's no way your body's going to function properly. It builds abnormal disease cells instead of normal cells. And that's the purpose of that exam. Be proactive. So before you leave tonight, ask them. All right, so let me tell you what not to do and what detox is not. And I briefly mentioned this earlier. When you use things like, chlorella, herbals, citrus pectin, they're not true binders. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about, your body, you doing things to pull toxins out of your cells. But you know what? After they leave the cells, where do they go? If you don't have specific effective binders to lock up, like a catcher's mitt, catch those toxins and pull them out of the body, where do those toxins go after they get pulled out of the cells? Right back in. That's why I have that picture of the street sweeper down there. You ever see one of those going down the street when they sweep the street? They got their brushes, and what are they doing with all the dirt? Just whipping it up all over the place. And so if you're just doing a juice fast or just a regular cleanse, something off the shelf, that you just get, maybe something cheap on Amazon, that's really what it is. Because unless you have specific binders that are powerful enough to lock up those toxins, they're never coming out of your brain and they're never getting out of your body. Liquid power zeolites. Glutathione is important. We have glutathione in the complete clean. And that's important to support healthy cells and toxicity and methylation. But they're not good binders. You have to have the binding component there. And of course, I talked to you about DMSA. Don't ever do that. 98% of heavy metal detox is not effective and 50% is not safe. So it's important to understand that there is a difference. When you go on the internet and you see all these experts, so to speak, or you see these products, you really have no idea in terms of what happens at a cellular level and what's really necessary to get the clinical result that you're expecting. And that's what I want to share with you real quick right here. Can everybody see this? I'm going to draw a circle right here. Can everybody see that circle? Yeah? Okay, you know what that is? That's a cell, yeah. Now, every cell in your body, whether it's a brain cell, whether it's a liver cell, whether it's a kidney cell, whether it's a heart cell, whether it's a pancreas cell, whether it's an intestinal cell, it doesn't matter. Every cell in your body has a membrane. And that membrane has a bilipid layer. What does bi mean? Two layers of fat. Now, in that membrane, you have all the receptors that everything that cell would ever need to thrive and survive and get the bad stuff out and get the good stuff in. Right? There are receptors on there for insulin, right?
Yeah.
That's how you get the sugar in the cell. There's receptors in there for testosterone. There's receptors in there for estrogen. There's receptors in there for thyroxine and thyroid. And so everything has to work and function based on that cell membrane being healthy. Now, here comes toxins, right? So we have lots of toxins from day one, all of our lives. And toxins, remember I said, toxins are not naturally occurring in nature. And so the way that God made every cell in your body, there are receptors for what occur naturally in nature that your body needs. Not just for the hormones, but also for the vitamins and the minerals and everything that needs to get in there has a naturally occurring receptor. Here's my question. Does your body and the cells have receptors for those toxins? No. So what happens if there's no receptors to get those toxins into the cell? They camp out right there. Yeah, they stay right there and they drive inflammation. So when they drive inflammation, when the cell membrane is inflamed, can it function properly? Can it get the insulin in? No. Oh, wait a second. Does it really blunt the insulin receptors? If it blunts the insulin receptors, does it affect sugar being able to get into the cell?
Yep.
And if it affects your sugar being able to get into the cell, can that cause diabetes? Can that cause weight problems? Can that cause obesity? Yeah. Now, hold on. I'm not just talking about the membrane on the surface of the cell. You know what else has a membrane? Inside here, we have something called the mitochondria. What does the mitochondria make? ATP. That's where all your energy comes from. Energy? Can I have some of that? Can I have some of that? Okay, so here's the problem. When you don't have energy, you have a cell problem. Okay? And let me explain to you. The mitochondria have a cell membrane also. And guess what the toxins do to that? Also blunt the membrane. So now you have an energy problem. And now when your energy goes down, right? You know what else goes down? Your glutathione goes down. And when glutathione goes down, now your body can't methylate. What did we see happen with the agouti gene in those rats? What did it do? It turned on the bad genes. DNA. Guess what? That has a cell membrane also. Ooh, wow. What are we talking about now? Every genetic potential that you have to develop diabetes, to develop Alzheimer's, to develop heart disease, to develop thyroid problems, can all be turned on by toxicity. Starts at the surface of the cell, doesn't allow the nutrients to get in. The ATP, the energy that these cells make, it puts off waste products. And there's toxins that have to get out as a result of that. What happens if the toxins can't get out? It just amplifies this whole process here. And you get sicker, your energy gets worse, and you get more depressed, and you get more symptoms, and we go on more medications. So what is the answer to all of this? How do we correct the cause? Because in order to get well, you have to fix the what? The cell. You have to fix the cell. Step number one is to remove the source. What are the toxins that are affecting the membrane there? Are they metals? Is it mold? Is it the phthalates or the BPA or any of that stuff? Obviously, if you're going to start to fix the cell, you got to get rid of the causes, right? Remove yourself from the environment, or at least eliminate them, amalgam fillings, whatever it is, right? And then the second thing is you have to regenerate this cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane here and here, your body loves fat. What are the cell membranes made up of? Fat. Fat. Now, the two fats that are the most stabilizing for your cells are the ones that you have been scared out of your wits to take into your body. What is it? Cholesterol and saturated fat. They've told you to stay far away from it, right? Turns out it's the best thing for your brain and the most stabilizing thing for your cells. That's right. Yeah. So you need to have the right fats and the right omega ratios. You've heard of omega-3, but you know what these need? These need omega-6. And you have to have the right ratio of that. And the question is, how do you get that in, which I'm going to come back to. And the step number 3 is we have to restore cellular energy. We said that when energy goes down, glutathione goes down. When glutathione goes down, your ability to detoxify goes down. So we have to raise cellular energy so we can get glutathione up and get your body starting to detox. Get all that junk out, right? Are you with me so far? Say yes?
Yes.
Number 4, we need to reduce the inflammation here. And number 5, we need to reestablish methylation. So I covered really all of those things. And this is how you fix the cell. This is how you not only get the toxins out, but establish healing and restoring function. Not just to your body cells, but also to what? Your brain cells, yeah. And this is the most important thing as far as preventing the diseases that we don't even know are developing. And like we said, by the time it's already diagnosed, it's too late. But this is what's happening at a cellular level. Is that making sense? All right, so let me show you how we go about doing this. There is a preparatory phase because you have to prepare your body to detox. So this shows you here. This preparatory phase, this is the box. There's a morning packet you take and an afternoon packet that you take. And what this does is it's strengthening the detox pathways, everything downstream, before we start pulling those toxins out of your cells. You have, I've had another program that I used previous to this, and I did it because it was a lower cost of entry or so. It was a cheaper program. But the problem was that when I saw people starting to do it, their bodies weren't ready to handle it. Their bodies weren't prepared. And there were some unpleasant reactions, unpleasant responses. And the only time I ever saw that was when we didn't actually prepare a person's body for detox. It takes at least 30 days to strengthen your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, your colon. And that's what the first 30 days does. It's strengthening all of these detox pathways to get it ready to handle the toxins. And then eventually pull the toxins out and get into the toilet. So that is the first phase. That's the first 30 days. Now, if you did your meta-oxy and you did your VCS test and you saw high toxicity levels when you first started, what do you want to do after the first 30 days? You want to test again. And you do see the inflammation starting to come down. You know why? Because some of the constituents, the supplements that are in here, are specifically for the repairing and regenerating of those cell membranes, reducing the inflammation, getting the body to start to restore energy. And you do start seeing that. So that is the first phase. That's the first 30 days. The second 30 days, we have something called the body phase. Now, what is the difference? With the body phase, you have now the toxins actually being pulled out of the cells. But you can't just pull the toxins out because, like we said, when they come out, where do they go? We can't let them go where they want. So there's a binder that we use called Detox. You put a couple of these drops on your tongue, and it's something that starts to catch and create the environment for those toxins to be guided down to where they're supposed to be. Where do they go? Where do those cells have to go? To the liver, kidney, the gut, and then out eventually to the toilet. Now, once they get to the gut, what do they do in the gut? Well, your liver creates bile, and that bile goes into the gut. And your liver is busy detoxifying, pulling the toxins out and going into your gut. What happens when all those toxins go into your gut? Your gut takes the bile, and where does it recirculate it to? It brings it back to what? The liver. If you don't have a binder in your gut to pick up those toxins before it goes back to the liver, what are you doing? Recycling those toxins back into your body. So that's why in this one you have something that you don't have in the prep phase, you have these night capsules. Before you go to sleep, you take the binders that go into your colon. And while you're sleeping, your body is detoxing, it's catching it. And, next time you have a bowel movement, it's eliminated from your body. Are you following me so far?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the body phase. After you finish that for 30 days, then you retest. And again, as we're going through this, Judy, we're starting to see the toxin levels come down through those tests. And this is the brain phase. This is the most important one, like we said when we started. Preventing sickness, disease, seeing your recall come back, seeing your energy come back, seeing your mood come back, your feeling of well-being come back. This is where it all happens. This is different because now we've set up a concentration gradient to move the toxins from an area of higher concentration to a lower concentration, not just with the body cells, but now we're doing it from the brain. And the supplements in the brain phase have the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. And this is where it goes into the deeper tissues in the brain, and it with the binder starts pulling it out. And it still has to go through the same pathways, right? So you still have at night, you still have the night packets where you're having that binding agent pulling it out of your colon. Now, I know this all kind of sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's pretty easy to do this on your own. You do it at home. You have a regimen, and that's what I do. It's just, we all take supplements, we all take vitamins, and there is special time. You take it with your meals in the morning, your meal in the afternoon, and then you take it before you go to sleep. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but you're on a regimen, and it's not a medication, and there's no interactions with any medications. It's all natural. There's world-class supplements that are in here that you don't do every day. Like I've been taking supplements for decades. You guys also, you know this. This isn't the type of thing that you do every day. I will say that it's the type of thing that you should do probably once a year. And that's typically what I do. Because, again, you'll clear it out, but some of these toxins have been in your body for decades, maybe since you were born. So it's really going through the normal protocols of detox really should be an ongoing thing. But if you've never done it, you should strongly consider doing it at least once. You'll never get well if you don't remove the cause of brain inflammation. What's the cause of brain inflammation? What did we say? Toxins, very good. What are the three that we talked about tonight? Lead, mercury, what else? Glyphosate, right? Okay, good. Very good. So, yeah, you have to detox the brain, and once you get to that point, that's where you really see the magic happen. That's where you start waking up in the morning, right, Arsenio? An hour before your alarm goes off, and you're like, no, I'm ready to go. And it's like, all of a sudden, the lights are on. And that's what happens when your cells start working the way they were genetically designed to, once you get the junk out. You've been living with it for so long that, again, common becomes normal. But once you go from common to high performance, you not only have a strategy to prevent sickness and disease and dementia and Alzheimer's, but most importantly, you have the ideal quality of life that you've been expecting. And again, when we started this conversation early from the beginning, the question went back to, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, right? Or 20 years, or however many years that God has for you here. You don't know, I don't know, right? But you want them to be your best years, right? And so these are things that we need to consider. If you didn't know it, if now you're aware of it, you really need to strongly consider it. All right, so what do you do with all this information? Well, it's up to you. The whole program, this is something that doctors have to have training on. I'm not the only one. There are other doctors across the country that have advanced training on doing this program in their office. We're one of those. So I can tell you, I know that the retail on this program is close to $2,000. In some cases more. If you want to engage with this, then the offer tonight for some of you here is going to be for $897. Basically, it's 3 payments of $299. So we've done everything that we possibly can to make this a possibility, a reality for anyone in here who wants to do it. But we can't do it for everybody. So there's a limited number of people that we can do it for. You can take the first 7 people. You guys can decide on doing it. You have up until the 22nd, but that's how long this is going to go for. So what does that include? Basically, it includes the initial testing and the 3 follow-up tests as you go through the program to see your initial level of toxicity and then the improvement as time goes on. And these are special follow-up appointments that you'll have with Deborah as she takes you through the visual contrast sensitivity test and also the meta-oxy test. So there's 4 of those. There's the complete supplement supply, which I just went through with you. All those 3 boxes, the 90 days, the Cyto Detox, which you take in both the body and the brain phase. There's a meal plan, the 90-day meal plan that's going to help you and support your detoxification process. And recipes that go with that. There's a smoothie recipe book. So it's nearly $2,000 worth of service for only $897. So that's it. And it's from here. It's taking the knowledge that you've applied and the knowledge that you've learned and making application with it, right? All right. One of my favorite videos. I just showed this to Yvette, my wife, yesterday. Some of you have seen it before, but I don't know, every time I watch it, I get something else out of it. So I want to play it one more time for you. Are you ready, Rodney? Okay. All right. Give me one more chance. One more chance. One more chance. Are you kidding me? What's happening? Okay.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide.
Got to get better and better every day in every way, right? In your handout, the last sheet there is for those of you who are interested in the program. Just put your name on that, and at the bottom you'll see the day that you would prefer to have your initial testing appointment with Deborah, and just turn it in at the front, and she'll follow up with that if you want to follow up with what we talked about tonight with the True Cellular Detox program. If you're a guest here and you'd like to make an appointment to have your consultation and your neurological exam with me, you can ask them, and they'll get you the Friends and Family coupon and make a follow-up appointment with you as well. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. Love and appreciate you guys. God bless.